Hello, my name is Dr. Carl Candlepun, and this is the sixth official episode of my Lost podcast. As such, it features spoilers for up to and including Season 1, Episode 6 of the series Lost. If you've not seen at least to that point in the show, I highly recommend you do so first before proceeding with this podcast. But without further ado, let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Candlepun's Lost podcast. My name is Christopher Huth, otherwise known as Dr. Candlepun, and with me is...
I am Mike Huth, also known as Orderly Flickerson.
And today we are talking about the sixth episode of Lost, titled House of the Rising Sun. I don't really remember, having any negatives or criticisms of this episode when I was younger, but the older I've gotten, the more I've come to love this episode, and it really is one of my favorites of season one, and it is my favorite episode of what we've watched so far. I can speculate as to a couple of reasons why. One of them being that, as I've gotten older, I can actually kind of understand more of, Sun's... this episode's exploring... It kind of shows you what their relationship was like, Sun and Jin, and where she was at with that. And it... I don't know... having more relationship experience as I've gotten older, I can kind of empathize with that better. And it's every time I watch that scene at the airport, I get emotional about it. And I've seen it so many freaking times. And today, watching it and taking my notes and stuff, I expected it wouldn't affect me because basically the last several times that I've seen that scene, it's been while watching it with somebody else. And something about watching it with other people, I do feel makes me more into it, more immersed in it. So I thought watching it by myself today and doing it just from a more clinical perspective of taking notes, I didn't think that it would affect me, but no, I did. I was literally
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, did that land for you?
Yeah, 100%. To your point, if you've been in a relationship, if you have any, emotional maturity about you, just the angst on her face is worth an entire dialogue.
Yeah.
It my heart's breaking for her, knowing what it is that she's going through. And I personally have never went through that side of things.
So yeah, the episode starts with Jin attacking Michael.
Classic hate crime.
Yeah. Did you... Well, yeah, I guess I should start with that. How much of this episode did you remember? Or were there specific things that you remember?
We might have to kind of cut that up into the sections as we talk about them, but I think I could blanketly say very little, or I misremembered. You're right. So if we're going off this, Jin attacking Michael, I'm just like, what? I mean, I was probably as confused 20 years later as I was the first time I saw that. I just couldn't, and then the whole time I wasn't concerned myself with the fight at all, other than he pushed Walt. And I think I probably 20 years ago wanted to go through the screen just like I did this time. But I was spending that time knowing I'd seen the fight sequence before, going, what am I not remembering about why this is happening? I came up with nothing. Had no idea until the episode revealed it.
Okay. Did you remember prior to watching this episode this time that Sun actually spoke English?
Yes, I did actually. Oddly enough, though, what I was expecting was her to start off speaking broken English and kind of warm up. For whatever reason, I misremembered, and I did not remember her just coming out and just speaking it it's her first language. So that caught me off guard for a second, but then I was like, oh, cool. Well, what I was remembering, I don't have to go through where she's struggling to communicate. So that was super cool, but it did catch me off guard.
Okay, well, so since you didn't remember why Jin attacked Michael, I'll point out a couple of the cool little hints to it that you may have missed in there. So when they first handcuffed Jin to the wreckage, and they're trying to figure out why he did what he did. And Sun's pointing, she's pointing at her wrist, saying something in Korean. And Saeed says, the handcuffs stay on. Like, they assume that she's talking about the handcuffs that she's trying to explain the watch.
I did not catch that.
Yeah. The other cool hint is, I don't know if it's that same scene or if it's slightly later, but basically the scene ends with Saeed saying, he tried to kill Michael, we all saw it. The handcuffs stay on until we find out why. It's the last line that's said. And then the flashback, the first thing you see in the flashback, it's a close-up of Sun's watch. But on the topic of foreshadowing and hinting at things, there has been some foreshadowing in the earlier episodes that Sun does speak English. And since you did kind of remember that, maybe cut these things. But in the pilot, when Michael's looking for Walt, when Michael first comes up to Sun and he says, have you seen my boy? She like starts to like almost say something, and then she like looks and sees that Jin's there and paying attention, and so then she answers in Korean. So that's a little clue all the way back in the pilot. And then in the last episode, when Saeed's asking them about how they got water, Saeed's asking her repeatedly, where did you get this? Where did you get this? And Kate's like, she doesn't understand you. And he's like, she understands me. It's like on some level he seemed to sense that she was picking up what he was asking. Okay, so they go to the caves. They find some bodies there. They call them Adam and Eve. Any recollections or thoughts about that?
No. I mean, I appreciated the reference. Like they were the deep cut. but no, it didn't bring back any like memories of if that's supposed to take me somewhere down memory lane. Matter of fact, I'm gonna shock you. I didn't even recall that they had found bodies.
I think the next thing to transition to from there would be the debate on whether or not to move to the caves. Where would you have landed in that debate if you were in their situation?
Well, I mean, I appreciate Saeed's spirit. He said that he's not going to give up. At the same time, it's been such a short amount of time. Yet the whole rescue thing, I feel like if I'm on that island, I'm like, oh, okay. Like if I had to choose between, living next to my fresh water source or expecting at this point that, if I do that, I'm going to miss the flyover that's going to get us rescued. I'm getting towards the water source. I mean, I'm getting out of the sun. I'm getting close to my fresh water source, and I'm getting, knowing at least what they know now, I'm getting some type of, structure, shelter, i.e. the cave, about the best one you can get. I think, to me, that's a no-brainer for survival. And if you had any indication at this point that, man, they're flying a grid pattern, there's probably 100 birds up there looking for us, sure. Let a handful of people stay on the beach, I guess. But I'm going to that cave 100%.
Well, I think Jack makes a good point near the end when like Kate says she's going to stay, and he's like, well, other people can stay and like basically what I'm saying is you could have like people work shifts on like looking out.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like an interesting point that nobody brings up in the episode as far as that debate is, I think a good reason to maybe not want to move into the jungle is, the weird shit, specifically the monster. Yeah. That like, okay, maybe you feel safer on the beach, although, I don't know why necessarily. The monster hasn't come out onto the beach.
It's kind of interesting you say that, because as soon as you said it, I thought, well, yeah. I mean, I guess for all the badness this thing could bring, it seems to have an aversion to sun and sand. I mean, that's true. Also, seeing the way it's moved through the trees and whatnot, I guess it would maybe be weird to think that it would enter into a cave. I don't know.
Yeah,
it just seems strange. So, of course, there's still a lot of unknown about the actual creature. So
So and just the island itself, like the other, it's like is it more dangerous to go into the jungle and into that cave, and then because you're gonna have to come out for food and stuff. So it's just a question of as far as the mysterious elements of the island, which would be safer, the beach or the caves? And I don't feel like there's a good answer to that. But that's the thing, they don't even bring that element up in the debate. It's more of a question of, okay, are we settling in and just accepting our fate, or are we gonna keep trying to get rescued and hope for rescue?
Which I think is interesting because, like you said, it's interesting that's what they bring you into. Like, hey, this is the only answer that this only question that needs an answer is whether you've given up and you're settling into the island, or you believe that there's hope that you're going to be rescued. And really, that's not even the tip of the iceberg to the decision making there. So that is rather interesting.
But I think you're right. I think thematically that is the point of the debate in the episode, and I think that is why they kind of focus on that element of it. As far as like where Kate lands on it, we've talked a lot about Boone in these past few weeks, which I'm just now realizing I don't think Boone and Shannon were in this episode.
They were not.
Interesting.
Boone was probably off
fucking shit up.
Trying to be a hero, messing it up.
Trying to catch a boar or something. But anyways, we talked a lot about Boone in the past few weeks and how well they've kind of established a defining character trait of his and kept that's become more and more relevant. Kate, like in this episode, also going back to Walkabout, like Jack kind of calls her out on like, I feel like you sign up for all of these treks into the jungle because you have a problem staying put.
Yeah.
And then in this episode, that kind of gets confirmed and further fleshed out, because as soon as he brings up the idea of moving into the caves, like she gets real uncomfortable, and she doesn't have a good counterpoint to that. Like when they're walking back with the water before they run into Saeed, he's expecting her to say a but. You remember that?
Yeah.
He's like, but, and she's like, no, but. Like she doesn't have a logical argument against it, but she just isn't comfortable with it.
Just don't want to.
Yeah. And then even when Saeed gets all like huffy and puffy about it, like she's even like, it is the only source of fresh water we found.
Yeah.
Like, she's kind of on Jack's side.
Yep.
It seems to be that her settling in and being kind of locked in, I guess. I don't know.
I think leading up to that too, it seemed like with the comments from Charlie and everything else, I think those could have been off-putting to her or made her start thinking about that, right? Like everybody around them's clearly starting to see them as a couple.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so he's teasing them quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's some funnies in there too. Some really good ones, but yeah, like that actually may have served as a bit of a unintended deterrent, where she's just like, wait, I never said we were together. They are acting like it, but now it's been brought to her attention and she's uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, because the real flirt, like even her. Well, and even on the way back from the caves, like she's like, "Oh, you checking me out?" She's like, "Oh, it's I don't mind," but
yeah.
But yeah, having to commit maybe. I think that she doesn't want to feel stuck. So in Jack and Kate's final exchange, and he's like, "What happened? How'd you become like this? Like, what exactly is it that you did?" And she just says, "When you had your chance to know, and turned it down." That made me want to ask, do you remember what Kate did?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I do not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want me to speculate,
sure.
I feel like it surrounds a murder that wasn't intended to be a murder. Like, I feel like she essentially is being labeled a killer, and that wasn't her intent. But I don't know if that's accurate.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll find out.
Yeah. One of our semi-recurring segments, unfortunately deleted scenes. As far as I know, it was never filmed. It was scripted, and it's another example of a scene that I feel like should have been in there for multiple reasons. So basically, in this episode, Charlie keeps trying to get away from Locke, presumably to take his drug, and Locke's kind of not leaving him alone. And like as you get deeper in the episode, like Charlie's getting more annoyed about it. So there was a scripted scene somewhere in there where Locke's telling him it's too dangerous to go off on his own, and Charlie's like, "What, you think I can't handle it? Whatever." And Locke's like, "Frankly, no." And basically, Charlie like just loses his shit, and he goes into this whole spiel about like, last I checked, I'm the one that saw the pilot get ripped to pieces. I'm the one that got chased through the jungle. I'm just gonna read this part. It was me, not you, climbing up a mountain getting jumped by a polar bear just to hear from a Frenchy radio signal that somehow has been broadcasting for 16 years. This island is a death trap and that everyone who lands here snuffs it. And worst of all, I'm never going to find my bloody guitar. When they first found Adam and Eve in this episode, did you catch how Charlie, like, kind of slipped up? He's like, oh, are these the people that were here before us? He's referring to the French transmission.
Yes.
And Locke's like, people that are here before us. He's like, oh, well, you know, presumably there could have been here.
Yeah.
There could have been people here before us. And Locke's like, yeah, obviously. And we talked about how in that deleted scene from the third episode, like, that was already kind of hinting that Locke was picking up on the fact that certain people are hiding things. So yeah, the Adam and Eve scene kind of added to that. And then in the scripted scene, if it had been in, that would kind of establish that Locke, you know, went digging and managed to manipulate Charlie into revealing these things. And there is a point later in the season where it's made clear that Locke knows about the French transmission.
Yeah.
But because this scene was deleted, it's like, if you're thinking about it, it's not. It's like, how did he know?
Yeah, how did he know?
Yeah. So that's a reason that I don't think that should have been deleted. And it would also kind of establish there's some confusion in our screening group about how Boone, for example, knew that the pilot got attacked by the monster, because that was something that they didn't seem to be revealing to anybody. But then when the polar bear gets shot, Boone says, "Is that the thing that killed the pilot?" So in the screening group, they're like, "Oh, is that a plot hole?" And I was like, "Well, no, because Charlie and Kate are on the trek. It seems to me that it would be in Charlie's character to run his mouth about that while they're going into the jungle, and then this scene would have reinforced that."
Right.
But and that reminds me that there was one other little. It's not even a deleted scene, but there was another thing in the script that I think it would have been good to have in the episode, which is that Sawyer reveals after they've handcuffed Jen to the thing that he doesn't have the handcuff key. The only real reason that I think that should have been included is because from this point forward, like, Jen still has that handcuff on his wrist.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, it would have been nice for them to like, be like, yeah, Sawyer didn't have the handcuff key, and that's why nobody's bothering to get that off of him. I think that's everything that I had. Before we get into fan messages, was there anything that, you know?
No, I think we kind of touched on it. It kind of cracked me up, the flirtatiousness between, you know, Jack and Kate. Thank you, Kate. And then Charlie, you know, teasing him. And then there's the one scene after the bees, and he had picked up her shirt and threw it to her, and said, and she said, I found this, or whatever he said to her. And she said it was covered in bees.
It was full of bees.
Full of bees. And he was like, oh, I thought it was full of C's or something.
Yeah.
Talking about her cup size. And I'm like, oh, that's...
He's like, sorry.
Yeah. Kind of fell on deaf ears, and he was just like, oh, I thought that was a good one. It's just funny how in that episode there's a lot of seriousness, but he just had a lot of kind of like funny things. And then with Jack and Kate, the little, I mean, almost like schoolboy and schoolgirl flirting, you know, the tats thing. And, you know, like, if I just remember thinking to myself, man, if they're trying to hide the fact that they're starting to dig each other's chili, they're doing a terrible job.
Well, so you're talking about funny lines that Charlie had, and that reminds me of there's another one that I like where he's on the beehive, and Locke's like, pull yourself together, son. It wouldn't be an irrational fear of bees if I could just pull myself together. So for our fan mail section, I finally did something that I don't know why this didn't occur to me before to do, but basically like 3 hours before we were supposed to meet to do this, I was like, well, why don't I just post on Reddit, like, hey, what did you think of this episode? And then ask specific questions and have people respond. And even with only a few hours for people to do that, I have a handful. So now what I'm thinking I'm going to do going forward is I'll do that at least a few days in advance. Post like, hey, what did you guys think of this episode? And then come the day of, we should have at least a handful. But that's not to say that we don't still want to hear from people that are actually listening to the podcast. Again, we kind of, or, you know, I'm speaking for you a little bit here, but I would like this to be a bit of a back and forth. I'd like there to be an element of a back and forth. You can respond to things that we've said, and then we can address those things. So If you're watching the video version, feel free to comment things in the comment section below. Or you can email us at dr.candlepun@gmail.com. If you're sending the email, you can even just send an audio file or a link to a video if you want. Or yeah, just it could be written form too. Probably the main question that I asked on this Reddit post was if you would move to the caves or stay on the beach. This user's called Prof Smoke. They said, tough call, but probably the caves for 3 reasons. 1, I would trust Jack. 2, better shelter. 3, water.
I didn't give Jack any credit, but again, I mean, if I were on that island, even if it's me, I would definitely align myself with Jack.
Yeah. Well, even Sawyer kind of makes that point. Just like, well, you trip, fall off the cliff, whatever. Like, nobody's gonna be around to answer the 911 call. This user's called Mucinot. I'm watching the show my first time around, and I'm on season 6, so I hardly remember a lot of the stuff that happened before. Regarding her decision not to leave him, I don't remember. I guess bittersweet, because I understood why she wouldn't want to leave, but the flower made me, and her, remember why she loved him in the first place, so I understood. So watching it this time, or if you remember from 20 years ago, like, do you agree or disagree with her decision to not follow through with leaving him? Like, she obviously makes the decision in that moment to stick around. Do you think that was the right call or the wrong call?
Man, that's tough because of thinking of what was killing their relationship was that, man, if this isn't a relationship conundrum too, but here's this dude willing to do anything he has to do to prove that he loves her and to be with her forever. That's a dude thing, right? And then on the female side of that, you're like, well, I want you to love me that much. I don't want to see the dirty details that you're capable of to love me that much.
Well, and I mean, there's the other element of it too, that like he's becoming somebody else. Like he's not really the same person that,
Well,
he's not loving her in the same ways. He's
there was definitely a good showing on that. Of course, being the forever romantic, I'm thinking like, give him some time, he'll get out of it. That other guy will surface again, right? It's 2 people that live inside us.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Well, and that's something that this episode, you only had so many flashbacks. It kind of just bullet pointed. Like it's been a while now, and he's like kind of detached and kind of domineering towards her. As far as we see, there's nothing physical. Like she slaps him in that moment when he doesn't.
By the way, I misremembered. I was waiting for him to hit her the whole time. Yeah. Like in that scene, I was like, I'm pretty sure he hits her, and that changes things, right? And it was the other way around. But
yeah, sorry.
Oh, the other thing I was going to say is the pullback, right? Like not that this is what made her decide, but when she looks back, and he's a pretty hard looking dude, right? Like he's lost that charm in the first flashback when they first met. I don't want to say he's lost him. He does not wear that on his face as much as he wears the angst and the just business of what he's having to do for sure. But that immediate, the burden, that's a great way to put it. That immediate switch back to the original Jen when he holds that flower up and she looks over at him, and I'm just like, I am hook, line, and sinker, baby.
I mean, that's
he's still there.
That's obviously how she reads it. Is that somewhere in there he is still there, like I said.
I think the interesting thing is if you have some life experience too, you could unplug this bad thing that he's doing, working for her dad in order to have there forever. You could unplug that and you could put in alcohol abuse. You could unplug that and you could put in, substance abuse of any kind, a domestic violence cycle. Like it all would technically fit, to your point, when you're talking about a relationship where sometimes, to a fault, people hold on knowing that person they fell in love with is still in there. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that person gets so swallowed up or forced into, I said there's 2 people that live inside us, that better piece is forced to live in such a small space that they suffocate or they don't see the light of day. When they do, it's rarely with the people that they should be loving the most, right? It's some show they're putting on for some stranger. It doesn't even matter. So yeah.
But all right, that's everything that we've got for this week. Next week we will be back talking about The Moth.
Hope to see you then.
I would now like to give a special thank you to the currently active donors. These include candidate number 90, Ben Ward, candidate number 108, Jeffrey Winslow, candidate number 69, Brian Phillips, candidate number 32, Chuck Boyd, and candidate number 341, Hans. If you too would like to become a candidate, you can do so for as little as $1. One-time or recurring donations can be set up on Ko-fi.com/Candlepun or Patreon.com/Candlepun. A donation of any amount will get you credited in this podcast and added to the candidate wall, which will be displayed in all video versions of the episodes of this podcast from that point forward, even once you're no longer donating. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the multiple people that have donated equipment and resources that are used in the production of this podcast. These include Mary Mullins, Brandon Huth, Charles Huth, William McMahon, and Charlene McMahon. Until next time, namaste and good luck.
Yes, I feel...
Sorry. God damn it. To like this video, click the thumbs up. Or, if there has been an incursion by the hostiles, click the thumbs down. To leave feedback, enter a comment below. To be notified when more videos arrive, click the circle and then select the notification bell. To view previous content from this channel, click either of the two boxes.